Yeah, my name is Mason Elliott, and I am really kind of running our business development efforts for the professional services category on Marketplace. And I've been with AWS Marketplace for a number of years. Yeah, I just want to kind of start by talking about really I think the launch of professional services on Marketplace. And for those on the call who maybe are not familiar with professional services, we launched this as a category on AWS Marketplace, and that was in 2020, at the end of 2020 at reInvent, and really started going to market, in 2021. But that initial launch was really driven by customer demand, first and foremost. So we had a number of customers that were procuring software solutions on AWS Marketplace, and they were also looking to procure the services that were associated with those software listings. So things like support services, things like training services, implementation services for the software they were buying. So that was really kind of nearly the genesis of the category. This has really been for the first time that it also really gave a spotlight for our SI and GSI partners to actually have their listings on Marketplace. That was something that was really only something that an ISV and an independent software vendor would have a listing around historically on Marketplace, was around their software solutions. So it was really, we really checked the box for a lot of firsts, for first to market for service listings on a digital marketplace, allowing SIs and GSIs to have listings on there, and then also being able to sell those associated services around software. And the professional services category is really driven. If you have not had a chance to browse through this category yet, I would encourage you to do that, especially if you're already a seller on Marketplace. But it's really driven through the private offer mechanism. And that private offer mechanism allows you to create customized bespoke offers around your service listings directly to any of the over 300,000 customers that are on AWS Marketplace. And so a little bit unlike some of the traditional software listings, again, it's all 100% private offer based. So there's no click to buy around listings for services on Marketplace, but we do offer a mechanism in which customers can interact via request forms with the partners that have listings on there, and then everything is really driven from that private offer mechanism. And what we've seen is tremendous amount of growth in the last few years. It's really kind of emerged to be one of the fastest growing categories on Marketplace. And it's really not just a platform for ISVs. It's a platform, again, for the SIs and the GSIs that are selling services around software, but they're also selling services for building on AWS. So we're seeing, things like, assessments around migrations, well-architected frameworks, cost optimizations, you name it. And we're really starting to see an emergence around training services as well. And we're going to share a link. I believe Lauren's going to share a link here in the presentation around a Forrester study that really talks about some of the benefits our partners are receiving around just closing deals faster, right? You'll see many of our partners are talking about 50% faster close rates, right? As well as things like 234% increase in ROI and 4x to 5x increase in their deal sizes. And that's really because there are customers that prefer to purchase on Marketplace, and customers have budget aligned for Marketplace often, and there's a number of procurement benefits. So we'll talk about those a little bit more. What we've done as far as the categorization of the professional services product is we've really kind of broken it down into these 5 main categories. You can see those listed there. These again can be related to the software that's on Marketplace, or they can be related to building on AWS. So they do need to kind of fall within some of the framework that we've built there, some of our guidelines around what types of services that are going to be listed on AWS Marketplace. They do need to be related to AWS for our customers that are building on AWS. and or they do need to be related to the software that is sold on AWS Marketplace. So that's really the guidance that we have around this. But assessments, you'll see that first category is really one that I highly encourage if you're not active on Marketplace, if you're not active in the professional services category, is to really take a look at that assessments category. We see that as really being a great place to start. These can often be low cost assessments or $0 assessments that a lot of our partners will leverage to help engage customers early in that sales cycle, right? And this also is something that can really be leveraged extensively for things like co-sell. When you're looking to co-sell with AWS account managers, having these assessments available so that account managers can understand what kind of solutions you have, how they can solve customer challenges, and they can easily articulate that value proposition is really something that is it goes a long ways, and it's quite valuable to really enable that co-sell aspect. You'll see some of the other categories in here. Of course, implementations. This is often could be around a software implementation, could be around implementing a certain type of architecture for AWS. A lot of our GSIs and SIs are obviously going to be looking at the managed services and being able to develop ongoing service streams on the AWS Marketplace, and then the support and the training tiers as well. And again, training has really kind of emerged to be a category that we're seeing a lot of growth in. We have ISVs that want to sell their training services related to the software they're selling. And then we also have some of more of our traditional AWS training partners that also are selling things like, virtual classroom training for AWS, or actual on-site classroom training. So, and this is really a category that I think we're seeing a lot of growth and some new trends that are emerging. So it's a really exciting one that we're paying a lot of attention to. This slide here, we're going to just kind of touch on some of the benefits. I won't go through each of these, but there are a number of benefits specifically to the AWS Marketplace partner that we've been able to identify over the last few years of really developing this business. And every partner obviously is going to find different aspects and different benefits within Marketplace that are going to resonate more with them, depending on the kind of business you're in, whether you're selling software or services, how you go to market today, what's your relationship with AWS, what kind of goals you have, and what you're looking to build in a marketplace strategy. But some of the big benefits are going to be things like speed to contract, and this is really kind of an overarching procurement benefit that we see really across marketplace, but we especially see it within the professional services category, and speed to market, or rather speed to contract, is really something that a number of our partners are experiencing, because when they leverage AWS Marketplace, they can often get these deals done faster. And that's for a multitude of reasons. And it does depend on the type of partner you are, the type of customers that you're interacting with. But things like being able to get budget aligned faster can often be realized if they're working with AWS Marketplace. Customers often have a budget for AWS, and they can sometimes leverage that budget for marketplace purchases. So sometimes just getting the budgets approved can be expedited with AWS Marketplace. Sometimes you might be a new vendor, right? You might be a vendor that does not have terms with a customer, but AWS does. And this can be a mechanism in which you can leverage that AWS relationship to get vendor approvals done faster, because AWS is an approved vendor. They have invoicing terms with AWS, and it allows you to just get these contracts done much quicker. And we've got actually have a short partner case study on that as well, which I'll talk about. And then of course, things like international reach. If you are a partner that wants to sell globally, well, guess what? You've got access to the 300,000 global customers on AWS Marketplace now. And so it's a massive footprint that you can tap into, and we do all the heavy lifting, right? So these professional service private offers roll up on the customer's AWS invoice, allowing you to not have to worry about things like, currency conversions and taxation and things of that nature. And you can easily expand internationally, and really touch a number of AWS customers by leveraging Marketplace. And then just a couple more here. We really see a lot of success in the public sector space, often because whether it's state and local government or if it's federal government, they often will have uh, specific types of government contracts that everybody's familiar with, in which AWS Marketplace can really help to unlock, right? So because of our extensive amount of government contracting that we do, as well as some additional contracts that I'll talk about, you can often leverage Marketplace to really enable the public sector business, right? And then just by the nature of a marketplace, oftentimes that will check boxes for government entities on being able to avoid RFPs, right? So RFP avoidance, because it's the marketplace is just in the nature of itself is creating this kind of fair and orderly vendor selection process, right? So it does satisfy a lot of bidding requirements as well. And then I talked about the co-sell piece. That's kind of the last one I want to touch on here. But co-sell is really one that you should not ignore when it comes to AWS Marketplace. And the co-sell mechanism is really leveraging Marketplace as sort of a lever in which you can align with AWS account managers, right? If you are selling your services through AWS Marketplace, that is something that can help AWS account managers retire quotas that they have, MBOs. They are compensated on Marketplace. They often have a number of different types of goals around private offers. And so this is really something that you can leverage as a tool to have a better relationship with the field, and which gets you deeper into accounts, opens up doors into new accounts, and just by the nature of the marketplace, these listings can be used so that account managers can get these in front of their customers, right? Especially if there's things like assessments and proof of concepts that they can easily articulate a value proposition around. They can get those in front of their install base. So definitely one to take notice of. Okay, and here's just a couple bullets that I'm going to talk to around a recent case study that we developed. And this case study will be available shortly, I believe this week. And so be looking for it on the AWS Marketplace public website. But this is a partner of ours called T-Tech Digital, and they really operate in the contact center space, working with a number of different types of contact center solutions, including Amazon Connect. And they have been a partner for quite a long time, and they were really one of our first partners to help us launch the professional services category. So they have a number of years of experience, and they've continued to find some of these benefits that you see here on the screen. And the things that they've articulated to us are things like, hey, as a service provider that's developing contact center solutions, sometimes using sometimes using AWS Connect, sometimes using other tools. Marketplace for them has really become a lever in which they can get procurement done faster. And that's really kind of the overarching story for them is, hey, they often find themselves, particularly in that public sector space, where they need to get vendor terms approved quickly. And so this has been something that they can go to over and over when they have these challenges. It helps them to avoid any kind of separate terms and conditions that might need to be in place, because oftentimes the customer has those with AWS. It allows them to do things like I just talked about the co-sell piece. It gives the AWS sellers more visibility into what they're doing and the types of services customers are looking for. They're able to leverage assessment so that they can get a sense of really, how their services align to customers' business challenges, and then those assessments help to extend into oftentimes, full scope projects and initiatives. And it's really something that has been a tool for them for a number of years, right? And then also being able to offload the invoicing and really allow AWS to take on that sort of undifferentiated heavy lifting, if you will, right? So this is, again, this full case study, which I believe is available this week, so I'd encourage you to look for it. And we could probably send it out as a follow-up as well, and we'll go into more detail about just some of the success that TTEC Digital is having. And again, they are just really one of our initial launch partners, really in that kind of SI space, that has even leveraged Marketplace now to evolve into a software reseller as well. And that's not uncommon, where you might come in as an SI, and you are really focused on selling your services related to building on AWS. And then perhaps you evolve and you start looking at some of our programs, specifically our channel partner private offer program, which allows you to resell ISV solutions. And that's something that TTEC Digital has done as well, right? There's a number of ISVs that they work with as part of their suite of services around contact centers, and they will often resell those through Marketplace as well. Touching on the public sector experience as well. I talked about this already a bit, but here's just a little more detail on public sector. It's kind of satisfying these bidding requirements. Again, just the nature of a marketplace often can satisfy a lot of requirements for government entities, as far as like RFP avoidance. But we also have partnered up with a cooperative called Omnia, which many of you are probably familiar with. And this is a government cooperative, specifically in the state and local government, as well as education sectors, where if a customer is an Omnia member, AWS Marketplace is as well. And so when they are looking at purchasing various services and software through Marketplace, just the nature of that Omnia contract helps them to get contracts done faster, because we are an approved Omnia partner, so it allows them to get these deals done. And then there's also a number of benefits that we provide just natively within that contract. So things like AWS infrastructure credits that the customers can automatically tap into, that we pass along to them just by purchasing through Marketplace. And that's software and services. So if you are a partner and you are selling to public sector customers that are also Omnia members, of which there are tens of thousands of them, you can pass along these same benefits, right? So just by selling through the Marketplace, ask your customers if they are part of Omnia, and then you can automatically pass along the benefits that AWS Marketplace provides, which includes the infrastructure credits to customers that we automatically provide them. And those can help to draw down any kind of costs that they're spending on AWS services, perhaps services that they need to build up as part of a professional services engagement, and or just support the software they're buying. And then you'll see just some other areas here around just the overall public sector benefit. You have with AWS Marketplace, we have an entire team just within Marketplace that's focused on public sector, that's aligned with all the top accounts that we work with, that has a combined amount of experience around contracting, that can provide guidance and best practices, and is willing to partner with you to ensure that you're having success in this space, right? And then beyond the Marketplace teams, of course, we have a number of teams within AWS that support our public sector business that you can co-sell around as well. So a really big opportunity, especially in that professional services category, that is worth exploring more after this call. Okay, and then here's just some best practices I'll talk through as well. And these are just things that we've experienced over the years. And then shortly here, I'm going to bring Archana in, and she's going to talk about a new launch that we just recently announced in January, which is really exciting. So definitely stay on for that. You'll want to understand kind of what this launch is if you're not familiar with it. But best practices, these are just some recommendations that we've come up with over the last few years of doing this. And these are kind of broken down into what are your best practices for your customers, right? What are your best practices for you internally as a partner? And then what are your best practices that we recommend for working with AWS is really how these are broken down. And so for your customer, for your install base, public sector again, look at your public sector business and look at your marketplace strategy around that and come up with a plan there. Because it's if you have a public sector business, this should be a part of that story. So definitely look at that. Assessments and proof of concepts, start there is what my recommendation is. If you have those assessments, get them listed on Marketplace. And again, we see assessments that are $0 free assessments all the way up to, $15,000 so it's and everything in between. So whatever an assessment looks like for you, I'd encourage you to have that on Marketplace and make sure that the account teams are familiar with it, and we can help with that. And then promote your capabilities. I think this is one that's obvious to me at least, but it's often not done. It's overlooked. But if you have a marketplace business and a marketplace strategy, make sure that your customers are aware of that. Promote that on your site, promote that in your customer portals, in your newsletters, in your conversations, and in your meetings. Ask your customers, do you purchase on AWS Marketplace? Did you know that we have a capability there, and that we can support marketplace transactions? That's definitely one to take a look at. And then for you internally as a partner, you need to make sure that you're aligning the way that you sell your services with the capabilities of AWS Marketplace, right? So you want to look at how you plan to invoice for things like proof of concepts. How do you plan to invoice for time and materials if that's the way that you invoice? Milestones, upfront billing, different types of schedules. All these things you're going to want to take a look at to make sure that you have some symmetry between how you invoice and how AWS Marketplace is able to invoice. And this is really an evolving area where we are constantly looking to push out new capabilities to support a number of different invoicing mechanisms. But this is one you'll just want to make sure you have alignment on. And if there needs to be any tweaks in the way that you're looking to invoice, that you have those accounted for. And then I'll just touch on a couple more here. Looking at if you are an SI or an MSP, and you are working with software vendors already, perhaps you have volume licenses that you already have with a number of software vendors, and you've built managed solutions around that software. Leverage those for a MSP business on Marketplace, right? And this is real common where you might already have procured software. You have these agreements in place, and now you can use that software to sell that MSP business on Marketplace as well. So definitely look at sort of the existing arrangements that you have and how you can build those into a Marketplace practice. And then for your engagement with AWS, obviously co-sell is huge. And also you want to do a joint press release with us, right? We do these frequently. If you have a PDM, talk to your PDM, your PSM, talk to your Marketplace team about joint press release for any type of listings and strategy you have for Marketplace. Get that out there, get that promoted so that customers know about your Marketplace business. And then always, if you're selling software today through Marketplace, look for those attach rates, right? We have stats that talk to somewhere around, 80 to 90% of software transactions that go through Marketplace have associated service offerings, whether those are implementations or support services. Look at what the opportunity is there to attach additional professional services to your software private offers if you're doing those today on Marketplace, and that will help to obviously increase your deal size. So definitely look at these. I talked about sales plays there at the bottom. Those can be identified as common customer challenges that the AWS field has identified that they hear about over and over, and they are looking for a handful of partners that can help address those challenges, and they would love to be able to work with partners that can solve them through Marketplace. So talk to your account managers in the field and understand what sales plays they are looking for. What are the main challenges that their customers have that they need a couple go-to partners to help them solve, and understand what those sales plays need to look like, and then build those solutions on Marketplace. Just a couple more, and I'm going to pass it off to Archana here. I'll make sure we have time for Q&A at the end. But features, these are just some of the common features that a lot of our partners are excited about with the professional services category. By listing a service, you can keep it in a limited state, or you can make it publicly available. Limited listings still allow you to transact through Marketplace, but they are not publicly searchable. So if you want listings to be publicly searchable, we do have some criteria where it goes through really an approval process to make sure that you're within our guidelines for public listings. But once that's done, customers can find you, right? They can find you, they can find your products, they understand your services, and they can understand your relationship with AWS better. So just that search tool is great, especially for our SIs that did never have listings on Marketplace before. Customers can contact you. You have the ability to attach any type of SOW or service agreement, invoice, things of that nature, any type of service contract that you want to pass along as part of the private offer creation process. You can do that through Marketplace, right? So you are able to embed your own terms so that the customer, when they accept these agreements, not only are they accepting the AWS Marketplace terms, which they agreed to, but they are also now accepting the terms of the contract that you have uploaded along with the private offer. And then we have, for everything around services, we take a flat rate listing fee against the total contract value, and so there's no guessing about what kind of fees you're going to have to pay, and how that taps into your bottom line. It's consistent across the board so that you can account for that. And then the reselling of services. This is really where Archana is going to come in, so I'm not going to touch on this too much, but we have a new opportunity around reselling those services. So definitely look at that feature and how that might play into your business.